Hey, what's up guys? Joker here. Today we're going to be doing a monitor review for the Acer XB241YU, which I wanted to check out here on the channel the moment that I heard this was announced, being that it is a 1440p 144Hz G-Sync monitor, and not only that, but it comes in at $499, which I believe makes this the only G-Sync monitor with 1440p that you can find for under $500. So it's definitely putting it in a very competitive price point where they really don't have much competition to speak of. So really interesting to see this monitor coming out from Acer, trying to make G-Sync a little bit more affordable and also bringing along the benefits of 1440p as well, but into a 24-inch monitor. Obviously, they do have larger displays out there. I've reviewed the XB241YU, which you can find for around $700 to $800. That's IPS, but it's also 1440p and 144Hz and overclocks to 165Hz, just like this monitor here. You can overclock this display. Like I said there, you can just go into the on-screen display options using the buttons on the front of the monitor, which are quite easy to use and navigate. You got a good level of customization in there to be able to get the brightness and colors, contrast, all that to your liking, however you want to be using this display. But once you set it to 165Hz in here and reboot the display, all you got to do is go into the NVIDIA control panel, and then you could run this thing at an overclocked 165Hz. I did run a frame skip test, and it passed it with flying colors, so no issues there with frame skipping, which has become pretty consistent on these panels, at least from Acer with the ones that I have tested so far. Being that this is a 24-inch 2560 by 1440p monitor, it's going to have obviously more screen real estate compared to a 1080p display. And for those of you that might be concerned about maybe the text and stuff being too small, I can tell you that this was not an issue for me personally, but I've used 27-inch 4K panels in the past, which I was able to get used to after a little while. But with this, the 1440p at 24-inch, it was absolutely not an issue. The math works out to it being roughly 123 pixels per inch. So if you want a basis of comparison, looking at something like a 32-inch 4K monitor, that would be 137 pixels per inch, and a 40-inch 4K monitor would be 110 pixels per inch. So it kind of falls somewhere in between there, and it's actually going to help out, especially in gaming with textures. You're going to get more detail as you're having a smaller screen, you're having higher pixel density, so even things like textures will seem a little bit more crisp. You won't need to use as high a form of anti-aliasing, and since it's 24 inches, if you do run into a performance bottleneck because of your GPU, I was using a GTX 1060 with my testing here, so there might be some games out there at 1440p where it might not be able to keep up at ultra settings. You may have to knock down the resolution to 1080p, and considering that it's a 24-inch display, that 1080 is going to be much more welcome than it would be on a 27-inch display, where you'd have to compensate for that lower resolution on a large display by increased levels of anti-aliasing. With a 24-inch display, you're really not going to see it as much. Before we get into the performance details of this display, let's go ahead and take a look at the physical aspects of this monitor. So we do have the traditional stand like we've seen on this newer generation of Acer monitors, with the red feet that kind of stick out from the bottom, which I can leave up to you guys down in the comments below if that's something that you like seeing. And they also have the really slim bezel going all the way around the outside. The actual physical bezel itself is about 2 millimeters, while if you account for the extra bit of display that's there as well before you get to the actual image on the screen, it comes to a total of somewhere right between 6 and 7 millimeters. So a extremely slim bezel, which they're advertising as being, better for multi-monitor setup. So if that's something that you are looking to do, then this would be a good option for that, being that it does have that super slim bezel on there. We do have cable routing holes on the bottom, so you can, well, as the name would suggest, route your cables through there and help keep things nice and tidy. And of course, we do have pivot, tilt, swivel, and height adjust here for this monitor. You can put it into a full portrait mode if that's something that you want to do. On the back side, it does have a matte finish apart from the slightly glossy accents on the Acer lettering, and there's even a kind of like, I don't know, like some sort of like a death spike coming out of the back, which I used for hanging my headphones on. I thought that was a pretty good use for it. I don't know if that was the intention of it, but if you want to hang your headphones, just go ahead and use the old death spike. I think that's the technical name, the death spike. Obviously, we do have a Displayport input, which is required for the high refresh rate 1440p gaming, as well as the use of G-Sync technology, but there is also an HDMI input, so if you wanted to hook up a second device, maybe a gaming console, something like that, to be able to swap over when you're not PC gaming on G-Sync, you can go ahead and do that, but you will not get the benefits of using G-Sync when you are over HDMI, and it does have support for a 100 by 100 vase mount back here. Lastly, there are 4 USB 3 ports which you can utilize if you are using the USB pass-through. Being that this is a TN panel, it means we are going to get faster response times than what you would see on some of the IPS monitors out there using G-Sync, which typically have 4 milliseconds of response, while this TN panel here has a 1 millisecond response time. Now, obviously, that's going to raise concerns for people about colors and color shift as well. I have to tell you, right out of the box, the colors were looking pretty darn good on this. I did have to adjust my gamma and contrast just a little bit, as well as drop down the brightness to get a perfect image for what I wanted to use. You'll be seeing my settings on your screen here that I was using for all of my testing. But the colors, like I said, looked absolutely fantastic. Some of the best I've actually seen on a TN panel, comparing to the likes of the Asus ROG Switch, which I tested about a year or two ago. This is much better as far as TN panel quality is concerned. You do have some color shift on here, which is to be expected with any TN panel if you are looking at extreme angles to the left, right, top, or bottom, which you'll be seeing shown to you guys. But, it really is most evident in like white colors. It'll kind of turn to a sort of yellow at really extreme side angles, but it did not have what I saw on some other screens, like, again, the ROG Swift, where even the peripheral of my vision was actually starting to color shift because it was that bad. That was not present here on this monitor. If you're sitting in front of the monitor as it is intended to be used straight on with the display, you're not going to have any issues with any of that sort of stuff. And if you have it off to the side as well, unless, like I said, unless you're really looking at the monitor like completely sideways, that's the only time where you're going to see the color shift really impacting your user experience. So if you're using this as a gaming monitor in front of you, like the way it would be used, then you're not going to have any of these issues. And backlight bleeding as well, not even present at all. I went ahead and did some tests. I couldn't perceive it with my eyes, so I did the all dark room and set my camera to 1/400th on the shutter speed and snap some photos here, which you'll be seeing. Didn't see any backlight bleeding really in the corners at all, so it was really good as far as that was concerned. And white uniformity and color uniformity, also great on this panel. The whites were even all the way across, and I didn't see any color banding or gradient banding, anything like that. Being that this is a 1 millisecond response time monitor, you could expect better performance in regards to ghosting, so I ran tests with that as well, and we did not see any significant ghosting or trailing here through the tests that I did run on the display. So gaming on the 1 millisecond display with its lightning fast response time and the 165 Hz refresh rate all paired together along with G-Sync means this is going to give a great gaming experience for anyone out there that is wanting to step up their game to G-Sync, but maybe doesn't want to sink in, the $700 or $800 like you would see on some of the 27-inch IPS displays. So that's really where I see this fitting in, is for, gamers out there, maybe with a GTX 1060, 1070, that totally want to take advantage of G-Sync, and gaming is their number one priority. I see this as being a very good monitor here, which, like I said at the beginning, doesn't really have a whole lot of competition in this particular area. So Acer really just has the $500 price point for the taking as far as I'm concerned when it comes down to G-Sync. You can find more affordable displays utilizing things like FreeSync. Maybe Acer will choose to follow that up, doing a FreeSync display as well. That is something that I would like to see, more FreeSync monitors becoming available to people. But for G-Sync, for me, has always been, the better technology. I feel that it does edge out FreeSync. Unfortunately, you do have to tend to pay a hefty premium for the G-Sync technology, but I really think it's worth it. I've been using G-Sync ever since it first became available, and it is just absolutely stunning, and I could not imagine gaming on a display without some type of adaptive sync technology, whether it be G-Sync or FreeSync, but between the two, I would tend to lean towards G-Sync personally because it's more uniform. You got the better range on it, whereas FreeSync is, limited based on, the monitor manufacturer and whatever they set for the display. But I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here, guys. Please let me know your thoughts on the Acer XB241YU down in the comments below if you are thinking about picking up one of these monitors. Like I said, they are $499 at the time of me making this video, which makes it the only G-Sync monitor that I know of under $500, especially at 1440p and 144 Hz, let alone overclockable to 165 Hz. And I've got no issues whatsoever recommending this monitor, so I will put a link down in the description below over to Amazon if you want to pick up this display. They are available right now, and they did have some still in stock at the time of me recording this video. But I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here, and I'll catch you guys next time. Ta-ra.